brace yourself because I think I've unlocked some otherworldly power. We're here to discuss the spoilers for My Hero Academia chapter 378, so let's get right to it. Thank you to Rukasu, Dobby's Pole Dance, and Justice. The reason that I think I got such amazing powers randomly, maybe I'm the first quirk user in the real world, is just the amount of things that I guessed correctly that were gonna happen in this chapter. But let's get there and go over it so we can actually talk about what happens. The title of the chapter is The Story of How We All Became Heroes Part 3. And according to Rukasu, the chapter begins with Brava saying that in her shut-in era, she hacked into Feel Good Inc. servers for fun and caused their home screen to be taken over by Ganriki Nekos, cats with huge eyes. We see a flashback of Skeptic freaking out at the time as he remembers her. And this is something that we've long since theorized on the channel because we know that Skeptic has only failed Redestro one time in his past, and we know that at a certain point, Brava was a legendary hacker, so we've theorized on this channel that Brava was the one to make Skeptic fail, and in this chapter that's officially confirmed. And on the first page, we do see a bunch of men in a control center with All Might and Tsukauchi, and then there's a small kind of 7 PC or 7 monitor area for Brava where she's doing her hacking on Skeptic as his computer is pretty much just whacking out. It looks like some sort of big Mac all-in-one, and both that screen and even the laptop next to him are both just covered in cats. It seems like Brava discovered some strange activity going on in his company, and she hacked them to let him know, hey, I'm putting you on notice. In the current day, she then causes all the monitors that Skeptic is controlling to be taken over by dancing Ganriki Nekos, which again are just chibi cats with big and cute eyes. But this causes Skeptic to freak out again. He then realizes that he needs to escape and then turns the 2 most important computers that he has into humanoids using his quirk, which we know can let him turn things into humanoids as long as they're around the size or smaller than a fridge. And that's exactly what we see on the page happening in Skeptic's control center as all the screens in his control center start turning into those cats on the screen, and he really just freaks out and rushes to get out of there, knocking the chair over as he runs with his 2 quirk created allies out for the entrance. But we'll get back to him in a second. It's here where the cops then notice that even though the system has been restored by Brava, Yue is still falling. Brava says that there was too much damage and that she needs to create a new system that will work with the remaining parts, but she won't be able to make it in time to save Yue from falling out of the sky. And we know, of course, that Yue is falling out of the sky because of Shigaraki's transformation or whatever it was that happened with his body just a couple chapters ago when he left his body and a huge giant explosion happened, and we still don't have the status of all the people that were on the ground there, like Bakugo and Mirko and all the other characters. But as Yue falls out of the sky with pieces of it literally just ripping off, it actually isn't completely over the ocean anymore, as we see Yue is near some sort of large town with a forest around it, so there is actually the danger that if Yue falls out of the sky, it's gonna fall on top of a population center where there are actually people, and that would be a devastating crisis in the world of My Hero Academia. Kind of just another reason for people to hate the heroes and Yue. Tsukauchi doesn't like the idea of teaming up with villains, but remembers Aoyama and the possibility of change that he represented. We cut to the surface of Yue, and Deku remembers Tomura's line in the last war that not understanding each other is what makes them heroes and villains. And on the page, we actually see Deku kind of grabbing his cape and pulling it free from his neck a little bit and panting because, again, Deku's issue here is that he's having trouble breathing because of the blowback from the gear shift quirk, and while this conversation with Shigaraki really does have to happen, it's also probably a tactic for Deku to catch his breath so he doesn't have to continue fighting. Elsewhere in the attached command center to Yue, Mandalay warns that the school is gonna fall and everyone starts running. Kaminari and Manga see the Twice clones and get worried about Aizawa and Monoma, as Kaminari looks really tired and exhausted from all the charging he's done to the electricity systems in Yue's base, and he just sees the sheer flood of Twice clones where Aizawa and Monoma are supposed to be as he calls out for his sensei and his friend. As Yue continues to plummet, we see the jets from the USA that are from Star and Stripes team thinking about whether or not they should use lasers on Yue to keep it from falling onto the town. But one of the other jet pilots says no because he's afraid of hitting their allies. But it's then where they spot someone, and here's where again my magic powers of prophecy have to activate. As the waves splash in the ocean, we see a figure bouncing in the air slightly just above the ocean surface, covered in a pink smoke of small little hearts coming off of his body as Yue falls above him. This of course is Gentle, who we recently did a video about his return and predicting how he would return and how it would parallel the events of his backstory, where he failed to save a man falling out of a building, but he would succeed in saving Yue, which is falling out of the sky. And the events of that video are pretty much exactly how this chapter plays out with Gentle. But before we see that play out, we cut back over to Skeptic, and we see that he's been cornered by Hound Dog, Miss Joke, Shindo, and Nakagame. And we actually see Tsukauchi saying, "We're counting on you, Tobita," which is Gentle's name, and Brava yells out, "Good luck, Gentle," as Hound Dog thinks about how they're relying on the villain from that one time where he and Ectoplasm caught Deku fighting a villain that invaded Yue. Gentle holds his ear to his headset to hear Brava and Tsukauchi's words, and we see that Gentle does in fact look a little different than the last time that we saw him. His mustache and his beard have definitely gotten way more bushy and gotten way longer, and it seems like his hair on his head has also grown as well. Gentle isn't wearing his full cape and his villain outfit this time though, he is just wearing what seems to be a dark shirt and some fancy dress pants. And here's actually where we cut to a flashback where we see what's been happening with Gentle up until this point, because they have to explain why Gentle hasn't appeared up until now. We see a flashback of Mikazu prison being destroyed by the Tartarus escapees, and Muscular says that the prisoners are now free, and they start thinking about all the evil that they'll be able to do now. But Gentle stands in front of them and asks if they really want to continue down this path. And on the page we do see large explosions from the prison as we see the horrors of the prisoners advancing on the guards, and Muscular, shirtless, kind of smiles looking over at the other prisoners, happy that he's broken them free. And this is probably exactly why Muscular ends up getting the nickname Jailbreaker, because he probably was the main one going around and helping people break out of prisons after All For One broke him out of Tartarus. But as Muscular leaves in his own helicopter and all the villains start trying to load into other helicopters, Gentle stands in the way, actually blocking their exit. And as the villains start screaming and yelling at Gentle, Gentle starts remembering the words of the Gorilla Cop, saying that he could start over as long as he recognizes his own mistakes. The prisoners come to attack Gentle, and he looks scared, but he remembers Deku, and his eyes open once again, displaying a confidence that overcome the tears that are in his eyes from all the fright. And as Gentle makes a fierce face remembering Deku's words, we cut back to the present as we see Gentle putting two hands in the air as the ocean waves crash around him. We then cut back to the flashback of Gentle in the prison one more time, and we actually see that he fought back and managed to stop all the other prisoners from escaping. The police then arrive and ask what he wants in return, and Gentle says that he wants to meet with Brava, that the time they've spent apart has made their love even stronger. And of course this calls back to the fact that during the Tartarus prison break, we know that there were 7 prisons that were broken into, but only 6 prisons actually had prisoners being released out into Japan, meaning that we knew for some reason one of the prisons didn't have prisoners released out into the streets, but we didn't know exactly why, and it seems like Gentle was the reason. And as the flashback ends, we see Yue falling out of the sky and falling and nearly crashing into the ocean as the entirety of Yue lands on one of Gentle's air pads. And this is a massive bouncy air pad that is the size of the entire general area of Yue. And Gentle is only capable of doing this with lover mode, but it is an amazing 2-page spread where we see Gentle remembering again his backstory where he failed to save that person from falling out of the building, as Mandalay sends in a report that they somehow didn't fall into the ocean because of some elastic air, and Deku immediately realizes that it has to be Gentle. As Gentle is using his gently super lover moves, he wonders if that young man Midoriya is still fighting to protect someone's smile as tears stream down his face, and we see Deku and Gentle crying on the same page. But Deku doesn't really have time to react to that all that much, because Banjo, the Black Whip user, ends up screaming from within Deku, saying that Shigaraki is on the move again. And we see that Shigaraki is actually getting ready to place his hand on the ground to completely make everything that Gentle just did in saving Yue from crashing into the ocean irrelevant, as he was gonna use Decay to completely erase all of Yue. But in that moment, something interesting happens, another thing that we actually called happening on this channel. a bullet actually cuts right through Shigaraki's hand, and it seems like another one actually might have hit him in the head. And as the bullet shreds through Shigaraki's hand, Deku actually sees that it's a bullet made out of hair, and he instantly recognizes who that's from. Tsukauchi then finishes his speech from earlier, saying even though they're villains, I chose to believe in something that exists deep in their heart, their origin. That's when we see Lady Nagant on top of a building with her gun pointed at Yue as the final page of the chapter. And she's actually nowhere near Yue. She's on a building in the town that Yue was maybe falling towards, and we see her wrapped in bandages with a really gnarly looking sniper on her arm, and there are cracks going up her face from the time that she exploded, and you can check out that whole story in our The Day That Izuku Midoriya Became Vigilante Deku video. But those are the spoilers for My Hero Academia chapter 378, and we are going to do a couple other videos discussing some of the things that happen in this chapter, like Lady Nagant's return and the strange incident of All Might leaving the area that he's in this chapter with a strange briefcase. But you're gonna have to check the channel later in the day for those videos, or if you want, you could just subscribe and turn the notifications on to make sure you don't miss those. See you guys later. Hope you have a good night and a good morning, and it's Pineapple. Peace.